Good morning, everybody. I'm Thomas Roberts. Topping the agenda today is Mitt Romney at odds with Republican leaders on messaging after the Supreme Court's health care ruling. After days of hearing GOP leaders stress that the court decision mandate is a tax under the authority of the Congress, here was Romney's senior advisor, Eric Fernstrom, the infamous Etch-a-Sketch guy, just an hour ago on the Daily Rundown with a much different take.
The governor does not believe the mandate is a tax. That's what you're saying.
The governor believes that what we put in place in Massachusetts was a penalty, and he disagrees with the court's ruling that the mandate was a tax. But again,
so he agrees with the president, but he agrees with the president that it is not, and he believes that you shouldn't call the tax penalty a tax. You should call it a penalty or a fee or a fine.
That's correct.
I want to bring in this morning's power panel. We have Perry Bacon, political editor for thegrio.com, Democratic strategist Chris Kofinas, and Republican strategist Alice Stewart. Alice, I want to start with you. Obviously, this is big news for this morning, a mixed message coming after most everybody on the Sunday Talkers was saying that this was a tax coming from the right. Republican leaders really beating that drum, saying that the president reneged on his own pledge that the mandate wouldn't result in this tax. However, as we heard from Fernstrom there, seems adamant, speaking on Romney's behalf, that this is not a tax. How does the Romney campaign get away from this moment now, which truly is an Etch-a-Sketch moment?
Well, the main thing from the Romney campaign in terms of their concerns with the health care plan and the Supreme Court ruling is that this is just yet another middle-class promise gap by the president. He promised while campaigning and through the negotiations for Obamacare that this would decrease premiums for everyday Americans by $2,500, when in fact it's actually raised it. Many families are paying more than $5,000 more for their insurance premiums. That's the big issue here. It's a middle-class promise gap on the part of the
not about President Obama. It's about Mitt Romney. It's about Mitt Romney's main spokesperson just over an hour ago coming on the airwaves telling everybody that Mitt Romney agrees with the president. So let's figure out, why is Mitt Romney now coming out and Eric Fernstrom saying that this is not a tax, disagreeing with every Republican person that was on the talkers yesterday? This is a big mixed message on a Monday morning after all the Sunday talkers. Don't you agree with that?
The main message that Governor Romney has put out when it comes to health care is what he plans to do on day one of his presidency, which is to issue waivers all across to every state and also work with both houses of Congress, Republicans and Democrats, and institute free market reforms and replace Obamacare. That's the main message that we're hearing out of the Romney camp. We need to have competition in health care. We need to take the government out of the way in between the patient and their doctor and let people make their own choices, let them shop across state lines. That's the message we're hearing out of the campaign day in and day out.
All right. So, Chris, as I was bringing up, we heard from everybody over the weekend, especially from Speaker Boehner, about the fact that this was a tax. Take a listen.
This has to be ripped out by its roots. This is government taking over the entire health insurance industry. The American people do not want to go down this path.
All right, so as we hear the Republican leadership saying that they've got a problem with the Affordable Health Care Act, what is the right going to do now that the Romney campaign and Mitt Romney himself, they are at odds over how they want to move forward with this message? They do not feel, Chris, that this is a tax. They think that it's a penalty, just like what was instituted in Massachusetts.
I think what they're going to do is tear their hair out. I mean, when you look at the reality of what happened today, I mean, he has basically undercut what was, shaping up to be, a potentially significant attack line. Not necessarily valid, but potentially significant. And I think it kind of speaks to the bigger problem that the Romney campaign has. Listen, of all the people in the world that can criticize President Obama and Democrats over health care reform, the last person in the world that can do that is Mitt Romney, because he has the same health care plan. He passed the same health care plan in Massachusetts. And this, I think, is the crux of the problem. They have a tax. They have a penalty that is a tax in Massachusetts. And there's, I think, the crux of the problem. And this, I think, I think, bespeaks to a bigger problem, a bigger division between the Romney campaign and Republicans, that they can't even get their story straight on what is the problem and what is the attack.
Perry, as Chris says, they're going to be pulling their hair out. I think think for people that are watching this, whether casually or very closely, are going to be pulling their hair out as well to try to figure out where is the message, the straightforward path of listening to how the Romney campaign wants to frame the narrative of health care and what they want to do if Mitt Romney were to be elected president, and not contradict themselves all the way to the polls come November. When we talk about that, though, and let's all keep in mind that Mitt Romney also said that making it a tax would be okay when he was referring to it as such in Massachusetts. This is really sticky territory for him to be in. Do you think Eric Bernstrom was trying to send a message, though, to those people on the right that feel, you know, that it's okay to just get on the airwaves and talk about health care and it's a tax and beat that drum just too much and take the focus off the economy?
I don't think he was trying to send a message. I mean, we'll know later in the day if they flip-flop from their remark, if they change their remark. My sense, like Chris's, is that the problem the Romney campaign is, it's hard to say this is a tax on the federal level, but it's not a tax on the state level, or vice versa. The problem is the health care law messages are so similar to the national one that it's very hard for them to make a consistent message about it. You could see in that interview, Eric was very much struggling to say, here's what we do in Massachusetts and here's what happened nationally, because those are very hard to explain the difference between those things when they're so similar in fact.
All right, so a lot of people are going to be reacting, panel, as you know, Eric Bernstrom's message from the Daily Rundown makes its ways through the Twitterverse. But Alice, I want to ask you about something. We got a tweet from Rupert Murdoch over the weekend saying, met with Romney last week. Tough O Chicago pros will be hard to beat unless he drops old friends from team and hires some real pros. Doubtful. And Chuck Todd asked, brought this up, talked to Eric Bernstrom about this in their interview this morning. Eric Bernstrom just brushed it off, saying he can't respond to every tweet from Rupert Murdoch. But what kind of weight does a message like that carry, and especially after an interview like we just saw from Eric Bernstrom this morning?
Well, any kind of Rupert Murdoch tweet like that is certainly water cooler conversation, but at the end of the day, the campaign's been doing a great job. They've been staying on message. They've been talking about jobs and the economy. And another important point that Eric made this morning with Chuck was that since the Supreme Court ruling, the campaign has raised $6.7 million from more than 55,000 contributors across this country. That sends a clear message that people are ready to invest in Governor Romney's plan for turning health care around. They are tired of the broken promises on the part of the president, and that money speaks loud and clear. They want to hear what Governor Romney's message is, and they trust that he will be able to implement free market principles, not just on health care, but they also trust that he is the candidate that will turn this economy around and help create jobs, which for 73% of Americans, that's the number one issue in this campaign. It's the economy.
And the message today from Mitt Romney is that he agrees with President Obama that the penalty is just that, a penalty and not a tax. Our Monday Power panel, Perry Bacon, Chris Kofinas, Alice Stewart. My thanks to all three of you. 4 months to go until the election and decisions are made, but there are new cash concerns today for the Obama campaign. The readout of a call made by President Obama on Air Force One, obtained by the Daily Beast, details the president's candid plea for top 2008 donors to give to the max. The president said, quote, in 2008, everything was new and exciting. Now I'm the incumbent president. I've got gray hair. And it turns out change is hard, especially when you've got an obstructionist Republican Congress. NBC's Kristen Welker is live at the White House this morning. And Kristen, why does it seem almost desperate that the president feels like he needs to make this call? Is it based on the fact, as Alice Stewart brings up, that the Romney camp was able to raise over $6 million in such a short period of time after the Supreme Court's decision on health care?
Well, absolutely. Certainly one of the components. That phone call really echoes a lot of the conversations that I've had with some of President Obama's top campaign advisors, who say their biggest concern this election year are those super PACs. They are the great unknown, the great wild card this election year. And if you look at their fundraising so far, by some accounts, they have outpaced Democratic-leaning super PACs by a margin of 3-1. And don't forget, Thomas, that in May, just last month, or 2 months ago now, the Romney team outpaced Obama, raising $76 million. Compare that to President Obama, who raised $60 million. Obama campaign officials say they were expecting that to some extent because Romney had just clinched the nomination. Still, they're trying to give their donors a big wake-up call because they say this is really one of their largest hurdles moving forward. In addition to the quote that you just read, Thomas, another thing that President Obama reportedly said to his donors during that call that he made aboard Air Force One. This is according to the Daily Beast. He said, we have to take these super PACs seriously, and if we don't, quote, frankly, I think the political scene is going to be changed permanently because the special interests that are financing my opponent's campaign are just going to consolidate themselves. They're going to run Congress and the White House. So President Obama's reelection team really trying to make their donors aware of the fact that Mitt Romney is certainly a formidable candidate when it comes to fundraising, and this is going to be one of their big hurdles. The Obama team really banking on their grassroots efforts, setting up large, sort of broad-based grassroots efforts in some of those key swing states like Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, Iowa. So that's where they're putting their stock. But when it comes to these super PACs and fundraising, it's the one thing that really concerns them. Thomas.
Kristen Welker at the White House for us this morning. Kristen, thank you.